Hello, all of you beautiful beings of light. Today I'm getting the guidance to talk about, well, a number of things. As some of you know, and someone asked me just a few minutes ago about being homeless, and I was talking to him and he said, well, how was it on your patio if you're homeless? So what I might have shared with my private readers, those who are part of my weekly or so newsletter, I shared that I'm basically homeless this summer and I'm best vagabonding it. What I'm doing is completely trusting that source has me. And so what I haven't shared with any of you is the reason that I'm doing this. So I got the guidance in May. I started getting this message that I needed to let go of my attachments to my house. And this was really difficult for me because I've been here for more than 25 years. I raised my kids here. I still live here with my kids. And, and my son's school is just a couple of blocks away. So I love where I live. I love my home and I love the convenience of it. And when Spirit started telling me I needed to let go of my attachments to my house, I had a really difficult time with that. And I know that attachments are the greatest cause of our suffering. So when we learn how to detach emotionally from circumstances in our life, then we can come home to the peace within ourselves that we're all seeking. So I kept getting this message I needed to emotionally detach from my home. And, this was difficult for me because what am I going to do? And I send my kids and my cats to live where? I'm not going to abandon my kids. I'm not going to sell my house. One thing I'm not going to do is sell my house and move to mountains and join some cult because I grew up in one of those. So I'm the last person that's going to be doing that. And so I was, really confused. What I mean, let go of my attachments to my house. And then I realized a couple of weeks later, the guidance was I needed to put my house on short-term rentals over the summer. So my house has been rented out over the summer, one group after another, the entire summer. And the reason I needed to do this is because the dark side, if you will, has hijacked my regular stream of income. I actually own a medical business and it's been hijacked by the dark side. Like they basically have stolen money from me. So I spent this year trying to figure out how to get my money back. And in the meantime, I needed to generate another kind of income because the credit card bills were starting to pile up, and I do live my life in faith and trust and hope. And I have always been taken care of. I know that. I understand the principles of prosperity. So money is always coming from somewhere. And that the guidance that I got was to put my house up for rent over the summer, and then I would be traveling. And I don't know where I'm going to land next. I have pretty much no idea where I'm going to be from one week to the next. And I just trust that that Spirit's got me, right? Source has got me taken care of. And every week it always works out that I have the perfect place to stay. And so that's what I've been doing. So I had to let go of my attachment to my house. And what has happened is that in between guests, sometimes I'll have a day or two in my own home. So right now, I have almost a week in my own home. So I decided while I'm here, I'm going to get my camera and my good sound system and do a couple of recordings before I go off to where I'm off to next. And then I'll just have my laptop with me again. So this has been a really amazing learning experience. One, I've always wanted to be a traveling teacher. And so I'm getting to experience what it's like to be a traveling teacher and realizing that I need better equipment if I'm going to be a traveling teacher. And I need to know what stuff to take with me. So it's been a really, really great experience. It's been really good for me to detach from my house. It's actually been good for the kids to detach from this house. They're spending more time with their dad. It's been good for me to learn how to be a traveling teacher. It's been really good for me to get even more into the space of trust and knowing that the divine has my best interests at heart. And so I'm just allowing my life to be in the flow right now. It's a really interesting place to be. So that said, that's the reason I'm now here, and I'm in my home and I have my usual backdrop, and I'm recording a show for you today and hopefully a couple more episodes before I leave again in a few days. So what I wanted to talk about today is, well, numerous things I've been getting the guidance to talk about, but primarily I wanted to talk about ascension symptoms. And I'm talking about this because, as some of you know, I've been experiencing what has been labeled as COVID for the last couple of weeks. And what I think is really important for people to understand is that really, and I knew this 2 years ago. So back in March of 2020, I was trying to explain to people that this is actually the Ascension flu. So to explain what that is, my first experience with Ascension flu was in January of 2011. I had some kind of whatever it was that came through. I don't typically get the flu. So when people talk about chills and fever and body aches and all that, I have no idea what they're talking about because my body does not do that. I don't get the flu. But I had something in January of 2011 that had me coughing for weeks and weeks and weeks. And there wasn't a label for it at the time. But I knew that my body was going through a purge. I knew I was purging out of my cellular makeup old beliefs that no longer served me. So beliefs actually can become ingrained in our genetic makeup. This is actually what is referred to as epigenetics. So the great thing about epigenetics is that they're actually pretty easily malleable, and beliefs are part of that. So I was purging these old fear-based beliefs from my childhood religion that I grew up in. And I knew that's what I was doing, coughing and coughing and coughing and coughing and coughing. And I was coughing up all these old beliefs out of my genetic makeup. Now, what's really interesting is that it takes at least 21 days for our cellular makeup to start to turn over. So as you're building new cellular makeup, you're actually rebuilding your cellular makeup with new beliefs and without those old ones. And so I started hearing this term Ascension flu a couple of years ago, maybe 3-4 years ago, and Ascension symptoms. Well, until that time, there wasn't really a name for it. And so what this bug has been that's been going around for a couple of years actually is part of our Ascension process. And so a lot of people are getting Ascension symptoms, which include headache, nausea, fever, body aches, ringing in the ears, and sometimes feeling like out of place. I know a lot of people have been feeling that. And so what happens is that as the solar flares come in, so the planet has been flooded with these gamma waves and solar flares that have been increasing over the years. And as they come in, our bodies are actually changing. So every time there's a solar flare, a lot of people will start to have these Ascension symptoms, and could even be, the Ascension flu, which has exactly the same symptoms as the other bug that's been going around and can even show up as positive on a test. So a lot of it is understanding that when your body gets sick like that, to really listen to your body and ask your body what it is. So in my case, I had a positive test about a week ago. But when I first started feeling it, when I asked my body what it was, my body told me that I was having a response to a solar storm. Now, in my case, whenever there's a solar storm, I get a headache and a little bit of nausea. And so when I started feeling those, I Googled if there was a solar storm. And in fact, there was a massive one right around July 1st. And so a whole lot of people ended up getting sick with symptoms. And as a result of that solar flare. Now, my understanding is there's another solar storm that's going to be happening this week. So if you start feeling headache, nausea, body aches, it's more than likely that's what it is. And it's your body adjusting to this next wave of energy that's coming in. Now, these are actually good, these waves that are coming in, because what they're doing is they're activating what science calls our junk DNA, which is actually our divine human blueprint being restored. And a lot of our spiritual gifts being reactivated because of these gamma waves and solar flares that are coming in. So they're actually a good thing, but they don't feel very good on the physical body. And so I wanted to bring that up because there were some people who were actually quite rude on the last video when I talked about COVID. And you need to understand that it actually is the same thing as Ascension flu. I know that. I just didn't mention that on the episode. So for those of you that have been experiencing that, understand that this is your body actually going through a genetic upgrade. And part of the guidance I got back in 2020 was that those people, those bodies that could not raise their vibration to light speed would be left behind. So what that basically means is that as our bodies change to become light bodies, some people's bodies won't be able to make that transition, which we saw a lot of in the beginning of 2020. And I'm not going to get into the details because I don't want to have my channel shut down. And so let's just leave it at that. But what I wanted to say too is that it doesn't matter how advanced our soul is. So there are hundreds of millions of souls on the planet right now in human form. And that it doesn't matter how advanced our souls are, that we're still in human vessels. And these are infallible human vessels. So we still experience the side effects and the illness that other beings do. Our bodies are still susceptible to human experiences. And so, in fact, a lot of us are experiencing more issues than others because our bodies are having to adjust to even higher vibrational frequencies. And that actually is difficult for the human body to adjust to. So if you're one of the light beings and you can't figure out why your body's got all these aches and pains, just know that it is going to be okay. And the technologies are going to be coming forward so that we can actually restore our bodies to their highest, what I call their highest, greatest, and fullest potential, to their true divine human blueprint. And we are going to be experiencing that. We're just experiencing the precursors of that, and they're not very comfortable. And so if you do happen to get sick, please be compassionate with yourself, and please be patient with yourself, and just understand that this is a process that your body needs to go through. In my case, I still have a cough going on from this one that started around July 1st. And it's fine because I know what it is. I know my body is continuing to purge more of these lower vibrations that just simply no longer serve me. So I'm coughing and letting them all go. Now, one of the other things I wanted to bring up is this idea, and I mentioned this last week in a group. I was part of a group discussion, and you can find that discussion on my personal channel, that the hero worship that a lot of people have had is coming to an end. And I think it's really important for people to understand that this idea of worshiping people as movie stars, sports stars, YouTube stars, or even the people who worship the people who are, I don't really say worship, but I think it's really important to understand that we are all just ordinary human beings. And we might be advanced souls, but we are ordinary human beings. And none of us are meant to be worshiped or put on pedestals. And so what I wanted to share with all of you, and I've shared this before, is that none of us are given all of the information. So you might, which is why there's so many different spiritual teachers. You know, there was a time when there weren't a lot of people on the planet, so we only needed 1 or 2 spiritual teachers at a time. Well, now there are many spiritual teachers. And what's really important to understand is that none of us have all the answers. So you might have a particular person that you align with more than another person, and that's great. And understand that none of us know all of it. And the reason is intentional. The reason none of us are given all of the answers is so that we have to work together. The reason none of us are given all of the answers is so that we have to come together in cooperation and in harmony and in these roundtables and symposiums so that we can have these discussions about what's possible for humanity. So these discussions are far more important than just an interview where one person does most of the talking. That's just one person's perspective. These conversations are really, really important so that if there is an audience watching, they can get multiple perspectives. And here's what a lot of people don't know. Behind the scenes, when we're not on camera, we're all communicating with each other. We have sessions with each other. We have conversations with each other because we'll have information come in and we need the confirmation from someone else helps to confirm the message that we receive. So we're always in conversation with each other off camera to know if the information we're getting from source, from the angelic realm, from the benevolent deities, from the guardians of light, wherever it is that the information is coming from, that the information is correct. And so it's really important that we have these spiritual communities where we can bounce these off of each other and know that we're getting the same information. So an example is, for me, several years ago, I'd have a message that would come in, and then on Sunday mornings, I'd watch Michael Beckwith on Agape, and he would be channeling exactly the same information. I'm like, yes, that's when you know you're tapped into that stream, right? So for me, when I'm tapping into source, I go all the way to the very top, and I ask for only the highest loving divine truth to be made known through me, and that nothing else is allowed to enter my mind, and that my ego sets aside all expectations and interpretations, so that what comes in is just pure love, pure light, pure truth. And that I keep my own egoic interpretations and expectations out of it entirely. That's part of what I do. And I don't know necessarily what other spiritual teachers do. I don't know what their spiritual practice is before they bring in information. That's part of what I do. I want to make sure that what comes forward is only the highest love and highest light and highest truth. And anything that's not, that isn't allowed into my field. And I don't get on camera until I do my own clearing and protection and calling forward this loving truth. So I'm sharing that with you because I think it's really important to understand that none of us are the go-to expert. None of us are the one go-to guru about anything. We're all given bits and pieces of the puzzle so that together we can create the puzzle for humanity, so that together in these conversations that we have on camera and in person, we're bringing in more light and more truth. And really the intent is to lead the way for everyone else to learn how to find that within themselves. So my role is not to tell you what to think or to tell you what to believe. I only share with you what Spirit shares with me. And then it's your right, your own inner guidance, your own connection to Spirit that will either confirm that for you as what aligns best for you or doesn't. That's why I always put in the disclaimer on every one of my shows is if this resonates with you, then great. And if it doesn't, then that's okay too. I'm not a preacher. I'm not here to tell you what to think. I just simply share with you what Spirit shares with me and what I'm seeing, the spiritual guidance that I get. And when I bring guests on the show, it's for that same reason. It's not to necessarily interview a guest, it's to have these spiritual conversations that hopefully open up the minds and hearts of the viewers as to more of what's possible. So what's happening right now on the planet is that we are going through a massive expansion. It might not feel that way for people who are only seeing the constriction that's happening, but humanity is going through a massive spiritual expansion. And part of that is that all of humanity is going to be asked to rethink what we've always believed about pretty much everything. Because most of what we've been told, actually, I don't even like to use the word most, much of what we've been told is deception. So the deception and the truth are so intermingled and so intermixed that it's kind of like muddy water. I started seeing this a few years ago. It's like mud. It's trying to separate the dirt from the water. They are so intermixed that it's really difficult to see the difference. This is why it's so important that each of you go into your inner guidance and go into your prayer and go into asking your soul what is best for you to know and understand. Because we're all bringing unique perspectives into these conversations. And now these conversations are out of this world. The things we're talking about now, 10 years ago, people would have looked at us like we were completely nuts. Now, of course, there are people that still look at us like we're completely nuts. But these conversations we're having now, we were not having 10 years ago. Some of us were having them behind closed doors and in private phone calls. But the idea of having these conversations on camera out in front of the world is fairly new and really just since the Great Awakening of 2020. And what happened with this, the bug that came through in 2020, again, I'm trying to keep it as clean as possible. is actually the Ascension flu. And some bodies were not able to adjust to this Ascension flu, to these Ascension symptoms that were coming in. The real virus is fear. And that's what was being used to drive humanity into their homes and into this, right? It's fear that's been attempting to drive humanity, to hold humanity in fear so that we don't ascend. So it's really important that we recognize the real virus, the real issue on this planet is fear, and how fear is used to manipulate humanity. Once you recognize that fear is the actual issue, then you can start to see how everything else in your life is fear-based, and you can start to then navigate those fear-based beliefs and learn how to see everything through the eyes of love. You know, I have questions that people have asked me, and I don't have time to answer one particular question someone asked me a few days ago because I need to really, really tune in with spirit and get the answers to that particular question. So this is, I guess, a bit more surfacey stuff that while I'm here, and I just wanted to get on and maybe do a little bit of explanation for people about what's really going on in the world. And you can call it any number of things. You can call it corruption. You can call it, I use the dark side of the contrast because all of us came here in human form for the purpose of experiencing the contrast. So we are experiencing the dark side and the light side of the contrast. And then we have to use our discernment to decipher which is which. So we are now past the information age. And I started saying this a couple of years ago. We're past the information age. Now we are in the age of discernment. And this age of discernment requires every single one of us to really consciously discern what is and isn't best for us. And I use the word consciously as well, because up until fairly recently, we were making unconscious choices. We were making choices based on the information we were given and just assuming the information we were given was correct. Now, in this age of discernment, we're being asked to make conscious, loving choices. Conscious, loving choices from a space of neutral observer. And that idea of coming to neutral observer is really, really difficult for much of humanity. And part of that is because human beings in this amazing divine human blueprint that was created allows human beings to feel this vast range of emotions that they wouldn't be able to experience in other forms. So human beings can go through anger and love and fear and tears of laughter and tears of sadness. Like the range of emotion for human beings is vast and extraordinary. It makes this human experience really amazing. That's one of the reasons souls want to come here, because they want to experience this range of emotions that comes with being human. And part of the challenge is learning how to manage those emotions rather than allowing those emotions to manage us. So those who work on behalf of the dark have figured out how to use our emotions against us, if you will. And those who work on behalf of the light know that once we teach human beings how to stay in the emotion of love, that everything becomes possible. So in the emotion of love includes gratitude, kindness, forgiveness. Those are the main, but you get the idea, right? Of the emotions based in love are basically what we would call spirituality, which is always being in this place where we can come home to peace within ourselves and love within ourselves. And we can start to see what's happening in the world around us free of judgment and free of anger and resentment toward other people, and start to live our lives in a way that Yeshua, as I prefer to call him, was really teaching people about, how he was saying to love your enemies and pray for those who spitefully use you. What he was really trying to say is to find the love within yourself and then send that out to others. Because ultimately we want everyone to be healed. We want no one left behind. How amazing will this world be when all of us cross that bridge into this new earth reality, into this heaven on earth, into this love-based reality? And we will all get there. Some of us simply came here early in order to help others see that for themselves. So one of the things that we are going to start seeing once the we start to see the collapse of the old world start to happen. So you'll start to see new media, new on television. So a lot of the old fear-based programming is going to disappear, and you're going to start seeing new love-based, light-based programming. And what that's going to be doing is reprogramming a human mind for love and light rather than fear and darkness. So most of the programming that's on television right now is telling us the vision of fear and darkness, which is why there's so much violence on television, which is why our history books are filled with one war after another. We're only seeing the fear-based stories presently. Now, as we move into this love-based reality, you're going to start to see more inspirational stories, more love-based stories, more healing stories, more light-filled stories, more laughter. So a lot of that those old dark and fear-based narratives, as they disappear, are going to be replaced by new love-based and light-filled narratives. And as they do, humanity will go through a quickening, because that dark fear-based programming is going to be reprogrammed with light and love. And so just understand that that is where we are heading. I know it doesn't look like it right now, because from all outward appearances, it looks like the world is falling apart and all hell is breaking loose. And the truth is that, yes, that's exactly what's happening. All hell is breaking loose, and the old world is falling apart. And rather than be afraid of it, understand this is the extraordinary opportunity we are being given to reconstruct our world. We get to reconstruct our world in a way that serves the highest and greatest good of all concerned, rather than just the greater good of the few. And so get excited about what's happening right now. Get excited about the role you get to play. You're here watching this channel because you're one of the guides, if you will. Each one of us, as we have our spiritual awakening, then have the ability to hold out our hand and guide others through this same process. So the reason you're on this channel is because you're looking for more spiritual guidance, and because you're waking up, you're having a spiritual awakening. And now you may be someone who already had your spiritual awakening 10, 15 years ago, and you're here for confirmation about what Spirit's teaching you. Or you might be one of what I call the spiritual newbies, which is someone who has been just had your waking up experience within the last couple of years, and you're looking for more information about how to navigate this new world we're creating. So wherever you are in that, know that you are exactly where your soul wants you to be. Know that there is no one that's better than anyone else. And for those of us who came in early to help guide humanity forward, this isn't coming from a position of ego. This is simply coming from a position of, my soul volunteered to be here to help the rest of humanity cross the spiritual bridge. That's it. I don't need accolades. I don't need people worshiping me. I certainly don't need the hero worship. None of that. I am simply here doing my job. My job is to be a spiritual messenger for humanity. That's what my job is now. My understanding is, in a couple of years, when we finish through this transition process, I already know what my next job is, and I'm really excited about it. But it's not to be a YouTuber, okay? Right now, I'm doing this because this is where I'm called to be. And I try to always listen to the work I'm being called to do. Just as I was called to let go of my house and let other people live in my home over the summer, and completely trust and know that I am taken care of with regards to where I'm staying and where my family is staying and where the money's coming from. I also do that with where I'm called to go next and where I'm called to teach next. And getting on camera isn't something that I do for fun. I certainly don't do it to feed my ego. It actually, it's like pulling teeth to get me on camera to finally do it. So once I'm here, I'm okay, but I would much rather be, quite honestly, hanging out on a beach somewhere than being on camera. But this is where I'm told I need to be. And so this is why I'm here. And this is why I do the work that I do. So I think that's it for today. I wanted to talk about the Ascension symptoms. I wanted to talk about how none of us are the go-to guru, how none of us have all of the answers, and how we're all just spirit having a human experience, and that all of our bodies are having issues, and that it's okay. and that all of this is being resolved, and that the light does always win. So remember that no matter how dark it feels right now, love always wins, light always wins. And there are so many of us light workers and light leaders and light beings and volunteers on the planet right now. There's an army, or what I call the hosts of angels, that are present on the planet right now. And we will see this through, and we will create a new world. So as the world is falling apart, remember who you are as love having a human experience. Try to stay out of judgment just because someone has a different opinion than you do about things. Just because someone is making different choices than you are doesn't make them a bad person. It doesn't make them wrong. It just means that they are exercising their freedom of choice, just as you are. And all of us here are experiencing that. And when we're finished with this transition phase, the earth will be an extraordinary place. And I wish for all of you to be able to see what it is that I see, because I can see what's next for humanity. It's already been created in the upper realms. We're just bringing it here into our physical experience. And the more of us who stay in loving, the more of us who stay out of judgment and who stay out of againstness and stay out of anger and resistance and all of that. Remember, those are fear-based constrictive beliefs. The more of us who stay out of that and stay in a loving space within our hearts and within our minds, and always stay connected to the highest loving divine truth, and connected with our higher selves, and connected with our angelics and the guides and guardians that are working with us, and stay loving no matter what. The more of us who do that, the faster the world we want to create will manifest. So when people ask me, why is it taking so long? One of the reasons it's taking so long is so many people are focused on the problems and focused on the fear, and the anger and the resentment and the judgment, rather than focused on what's possible and what is being made available through every single one of us. We are all the ones we've been waiting for. Not me, not a president, not a king, not a preacher, not a ascended master, none of those. We have all been Christed, and we have all been chosen, and we are the ones who came here to help lead humanity forward. Me and you. Each of us just need to remember that within ourselves and take ownership of it. And hold the love and hold the truth that with love, all things are possible. With love, through each of us, all things are possible, and we are all the divine intervention we seek. So that's it for today. I hope to get a couple more videos out before I hit the road again. And as always, remember to hold your light so high others can't help but see their own light. Together, we are creating a world of peace, love, harmony, prosperity for all life on earth. And as always, get bold, be fearless, and live free.